Hi everyone, it's Ash from FPL Hints, here to construct a draft wildcard squad for Game Week 4. As always, if you're able to like, share and subscribe, that will be greatly appreciated. So at the time of recording, I haven't felt the need to wildcard, but I feel that with the way that the transfer window has worked towards the latter stages, I potentially might need to. And ultimately, it will depend upon my performance for Game Week 3. But then it got me thinking that what adjustments would I potentially make for a Game Week 4 wildcard? And there are quite a few adjustments I would make. I think my principle of having the big hitters and a heavy attack would still remain the same, even though there's a hell of a lot of value in the premium defenders in this early part as well. So yeah, just wanted a reference point for myself on the kind of team that I would have. And without further ado, let's get straight into it. Here we go. I've removed all of my players at the time of recording. We'll start off with the goalkeeping situation first and foremost. So with the goalkeeping situation, I'd stick with a 4.5 goalkeeper. Options are somewhat limited. You've got Steele, but then the issue is you've got Verbruggen as well, and rotation risk is there. And then Brighton have a fair few mixed fixtures with red block and green block games. I'd want a 4.5, 4.0 combination. So with Sales, you've got Miguel, who's 4.5 as well, so I wouldn't factor in Nottingham Forest. Flecken, who I currently have at the moment, has a 4.0 Valdemarson. And yeah, they've got a couple of red block games, but then beyond that, got a generous run of games for Bournemouth right up until the end of November, in fact. So I could potentially stick with Flecken and Valdemarson as my goalkeeping combination of having the 4.5, 4.0. The other option here we've got is West Ham, Areola 4.5, Fabianski 4.0. But the issue with West Ham right now is, yeah, you've got some green block games coming up, but at the same time, you'd have a couple of red block games in that period as well. Kind of feel that if you weigh the fixtures side by side, I'd favour Brentford's fixtures as opposed to West Ham's for the goalkeeping situation. And then, of course, McCarthy at Southampton, you now have Ramsdale, so I'd have to exclude Southampton. Leicester, not really keen on getting a goalkeeping combo from them. Chelsea, of course, have 4.5 goalkeepers across the board, so I can't factor them in either. And then you've got Crystal Palace. They've got Dean Henderson as the main goalkeeper, and Johnston has now left the club on deadline day. So you've got Matthews as the 4.0. And to be fair, I could potentially consider this combination as well. So from game week 4 up until game week 11, reasonable fixtures for Palace. My issue really is with them, they've had a lot of changes in their squad. So I'm not sure what issue that's going to cause with the balance in the long haul. So yeah, that it's really personally speaking a choice between Crystal Palace and the Brentford combo. But just for this draft specifically, I'm actually going to keep Flecken and I'm going to keep Valdemarson because I feel that they've shown that Flecken in particular has shown a bit more form than Dean Henderson. And I've got no doubt it'll be a 50-50 call for a lot of FPL managers. And with this hypothetical wildcard draft, I mentioned I want the big hitters in this team as well. So by default, when I say big hitters, I go to my forwards. Haaland, in he comes. And again, I've seen quite a few managers actually even go against Haaland, and his ownership has crept up significantly from the launch of the game back in July and at 30%, and now he's at 61%. So yeah, he is that at that level for a reason. So Haaland for me is a no-nonsense pick. The next big hitter, of course, in midfield, it's Mohamed Salah. So in he comes. Again, lots of managers are trying to cover Mohamed Salah by having Jota in, and to an extent it has worked because then they've unlocked funds and have beefed up their defence. They've had Trent and Jota as opposed to, let's say, Salah on his own. And then you look at the fixtures for Liverpool as well. They look reasonable enough up until game week 12. So in comes, and of course, Mohamed Salah and Haaland are fixture-proof as well, so there's no issues there. The other person as a big hitter has to be Cole Palmer. He did really well in that match against Wolves with 17 points. And then you look at the green block games, one real recurrence that I saw with Palmer in particular towards well, the last season, he against reasonable teams, he just did really well, especially newly promoted teams as well. And although there aren't any newly promoted teams in this green block run, I think he is a bit of a no-nonsense pick here. And is he fixture proof? I'd say obviously he's on penalties as well. Makes sense if you're going to get another big hitter, in he comes into the mix. And there is another option that I would consider, and it would be Saka as well. But just for this illustration, we'll have Palmer here. But if we need to unlock funds, I could shift Palmer out for Saka. So that's that so far. Talking of Saka, actually, let's try and get Saka in. Let's see if that combination works. I've got Mohamed Salah, Saka, Palmer, and Haaland, and that's 43.1 of my budget that's been used with 9 players to pick. So be interesting who else I can fit in to this draft. I'm going to go for a forward now, someone who has done reasonable of late for Brighton. And you've got obviously you've got João Pedro with his return so far. He's got a goal in game week 2, but then you've got Danny Welbeck, and look at his minutes. Healthy number of minutes, 3 goal involvement in the first 2 games, and then reminder of the fixtures. You've got a reasonable number of green block games as well. So for me, it's a 50-50 call between Welbeck and João Pedro. But in this instance, I will pick Danny Welbeck, just due to the form that he's been in. And then let's get another midfielder in. So on the midfield situation, I can't obviously have like every midfielder with a double-digit price tag. So gonna go just lower down. Let's go all the way down. I'm gonna try and force myself into having 5 playing midfielders, and there he is, Morgan Rogers of Aston Villa. And with Aston Villa in particular, he's in a very reasonably advanced role, got a healthy number of green block games around the corner as well. So I think he makes perfect sense here as well. So let's just fit the pieces of this jigsaw in as well. I need some 4.0 defenders. One of them who I already have is Ben Johnson. I'll restore him for now. X-Min's issues potentially, but as a playing 4.0, well, I say playing 4.0, I'd hope to not start him, but as a sub 2 or a sub 3, I'm happy to keep him in. And you've got Harwood Bellis. So he's been getting minutes for Southampton. They've looked surprisingly tidy considering the 2 defeats as well. And could I potentially start Harwood Bellis? Maybe against Ipswich in 5, Leicester in 8, Everton in 10. So I think it makes sense to keep him in my team as well as a very rare sub 1 and very, very, very occasional starter. So Harwood Bellis makes a cut. So 24.4 million with 5 more slots to fill. And let's go to a defender. And Chelsea, we talked about those green block run of games that are coming up for them. Just going on the 4.5, again, I'm sacrificing my premium defenders for that heavy attack. So 4.5 options, you've got Wesley Fofana, who's got those starts for Chelsea early on. Got Colwill as well. There we go. So again, it's a real 50-50 here. With Fofana, it's just that injury past has been somewhat of a concern, but I need a 4.5 million starting Chelsea defender. So yeah, let's go for the other option here. In he comes. So that's 19.9 million to spend. And of course, some other FPL managers who were quicker on banking on the price changes probably have more cash in the bank. But in my instance, I have to make the most with the changes that were available. So 4 more spots to fill. And let's just get Robinson back in. Again, with him, he had those 9 assists last season, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, no, he had 6 assists and 9 clean sheets. Got a reasonable run of games as well. So hopefully, if he can't get a clean sheet, then I can get him for his attacking returns. That leaves me with 15.4 million in the bank with those spots to fill. And I'm gonna pick another 4 point. Actually, let's get a midfielder in with the money that's available, £6.5 million. So you got, of course, Noni Madueke there. Mitoma might not be able to fit in this instance. Got Morgan Gibbs White. But of course, if I'm not mistaken, Nottingham Forest had a deadline day transfer, and that was Ward Prowse, who's joined the team. And obviously, Ward Prowse is famous for his dead ball situations. So that's going to potentially have an impact on Morgan Gibbs White taking all the set pieces there. And just going further down, you've got Savio. Another player I was interested in was Rodri, but he's not fully fit at the moment, at the time of recording. But again, is it too much having double Chelsea at this moment in time? I think it's worth it. And they've had Sancho join them as well. So I know he's playing on the other flank for Chelsea when he will get minutes. So we'll have a think about that as well. I think got, of course, Nkunku's struggling for minutes at the moment in this Chelsea starting 11 in the Premier League as well. But just looking at a few other options, they got a Neto in that squad as well. You've got Harvey Barnes, 6.4 million. And just looking at the percentages, actually, in terms of who's the most popular, 6.5 million. You've got Smith Rowe. Winks is a bench player. Again, Nkunku's ownership's going to decline. I think Mitoma's slightly gone over for me there. I would like to pick Gibbs White, but it's just the arrival of Ward Prowse has complicated things. I think Semenyo is interesting from an XG perspective as well. We got Bailey as well, of course, 6.5 million. So could potentially make it work with Bailey, but essentially I'd need a double up of some sort here. Would be Bailey and Rogers, or Madueke and Palmer here. So it's going to be a tough one to call. But let's just see who else we've got. A few more options. Of course, further down you've got Brereton Diaz. You got let's have a look at Kovac. Up you got Ward Prowse, who is 6.4 million. Minter for Brighton. There he is. Rodri. Just a shame that he's flagged at the time of recording, but he could be a potential option as well. But yeah, really clutching for straws here. I think the problem is with the Chelsea player, the X-Mins would be a serious issue. I think Palmer's the only one really in the long term that isn't an X-Mins issue for Chelsea. So just having a look here, who else we could potentially get. Got Johnson as well for Spurs. Haven't actually got any Spurs cover in fairness. And looking at the minutes, got reasonable minutes last season as well. Just looking at the fixture run for Spurs. Could potentially get Brennan Johnson in. So would be my differential. And again, attacking Spurs team as well. So need to weigh up the pros and cons there on whether I go for someone who's got, I mean, high ownership isn't really an issue because ultimately I've got the big hitters in my team. So having that differential, as it were, wouldn't be an issue for me. So I'd prefer to spread the risk. I wouldn't want a double up necessarily. So again, I would like some sort of Spurs attacking cover here as well. So let's get in Brendan Johnson in this draft. That leaves me with 9 million in the bank. So I'm going to just be honest here and say, look, I want a dud sub forward as well, who is super cheap and someone unlikely to start. I can see that Chiwomi for Wolves. He's got that red flag there. So hopefully, if I'm not mistaken, his price shouldn't really drop. Let's just pick him, or should I pick someone? Who else could I get? There's literally no one here in this price bracket. Let's just get him in. He's red flagged, hoping his price won't drop in the meantime. So £4.5 million for that remaining defensive slot. Let's have a look at who we can get here. Again, Dan Burn, who is in my current team. And of course, Gahey was linked with a highly reported move to Newcastle United, never materialised. Let's see what other options we've got. We've got Anderson, but I've got Robinson, shouldn't be an issue. Of course, you've got Mazraoui there, but the question is, how long will he retain his starting place? Again, spreading the risk would be significant for me. I don't have a Crystal Palace player, actually, but then how many matches would I start Gahey in? Not many, if I'm being honest with you, until, what, game week 8? So, not an issue for me. So, again, Kwanzaa dropped in price, double price fall for him, unfortunately. I think the person I'm going to get, Ezri Konsa, 4.5 million, because I like you look at the generous run of games that Aston Villa have. Champions League football around the corner is a bit of an issue as well, but let's just see if I can make this work. I can. The budget is maxed out, so just do my famous super zoom in to justify these picks one more time. Okay, so the goalkeeping situation, like I've said, there's only 3 combinations I could pick, and that would be Areola and Fabianski, or that would be Henderson and Matthews of Palace, or Brentford's Flecken and Valdemarson. And I just gone for Flecken and Valdemarson because of the form that Flecken has shown in the difficult initial games, and also the green block games that are available to him as well. And then the defense, again, yep, put my hands up. There's no premium defender here, unfortunately. But again, we know why I've done that. But in this instance, Johnson would effectively be a sub 2 potentially. Harwood Bellis occasionally a sub 1. But then on the X-Mins front, I'd expect regular starts for the Chelsea defender there, Robinson and Konsa. So Colwill, Robinson and Konsa as the backline regular starters, just from an X-Men's perspective. And it's there to fund this heavy set of Saka, Palmer, and Mohamed Salah in midfield. Got Johnson as well for some attacking Spurs cover, and Rodgers for attacking Aston Villa cover as well. And then you got that forward line of Welbeck and Haaland as well. Again, Chiwomi, you can just ignore him. He'll be the dud sub 3 to make it work. Is it a risk having a sub 3 that isn't going to get minutes? It would be when you get towards the Christmas period. So I think eventually, what I'd hope with this team ultimately, the point of it is I'll be able to bank transfers. So when I do need to make adjustments around the festive fixture rush, then that can be made. But I'm hoping that with this team, at least for a good few weeks, I wouldn't have to make a transfer due to the fixture-proof players at hand, and also the green block run of games that they have. Defense, clearly, if I was to do a SWOT analysis here, the defense is fairly weak, but it's not like I'm relying on starting 4.0. So I could have Colwill, Robinson, and Konsa as my set and forget defense, dare I say it, for a few weeks. And then I mentioned occasional starts for Harwood Bellis if Southampton show capabilities of having some clean sheet potential. But really, Saka, Palmer, Salah, and Haaland are doing the heavy lifting here. I'd hope that Rodgers can retain his starting berth in the Premier League for Aston Villa, but that's subject to him showing some form as well with the green block run of games. And Johnson, hoping that there aren't any massive X-Mins issues for him, and same with Danny Welbeck as well. So there you have it. This is my hypothetical wildcard draft for game week 4. At the time of recording, I haven't activated my wildcard, but that will be subject to change with the way that my FPL team does. And no doubt the international break will give a lot of food for thought for many FPL managers as well, in terms of where they're at with their overall rank at that point in time, and if they're looking to get a jump start as well. I think the fundamental question you need to ask yourself is, if you are going to wildcard, are you looking to basically have it so that you don't have to make constant regular changes? And then when you've got these fixture proof players, hopefully not, but there is a big impact that is going to happen with Champions League football, and I don't think that it's been called out enough. And it's basically, there are an additional 4 matches that teams will be playing, those in the group stage, and also a team that went all the way to the final will be playing an additional 4 matches. And that's obviously going to have an impact on performance in the Premier League, X-Mins issues for FPL assets as well. So that needs to be factored in as well. So I'm hoping that a lot of these players that I've picked are fixture proof, and there aren't really X-Mins issues either across the board. So let me know in the comments below what you think. Have I got the balance right? Have I got the balance wrong? Is my principle of having this heavy set attack problematic? I kind of feel that, not that I've gotten away with it in the first initial game weeks, but it has sort of worked for now. But I do know that it's easier to downsize a heavy set attack to get the premium defenders in than if you had a premium defense and they didn't work and then upgrade to a premium attack. So swings and roundabouts in that respect. And as always, if you're able to like, share, and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. Take care and all the best.